And welcome back to We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. And today we're happy that you're joining us because we're talking about an ongoing topic that we spoke about last week, talking about mental health. And what we're really kind of going through is the Black population. So we actually talked about mental health in Black women last week. And this week we're going to talk about mental health in Black men. And again, we're doing it because I did some research and Tremaine did some research as well. But together we kind of came up with the idea that we need to, maybe jump in and do some actual Black women, Black men, and mental health awareness just to get the word out there to help people, keep it on the front of their mind that, yes, we have to be mindful of what's going on in our population with our culture as well. And we have to be very, very aware of being able to get the mental health services we need and being aware of whether our mental health is being challenged in different scenarios in life. And there are many that we found, right, Tremaine?
There's just so much that we don't talk about in the spirit of mental health and what we can do to, be there for each other and have open mindedness about certain things.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah. As far as Black men and the state of mental health for Black men, so I did find some interesting data, and I'm going to give the research information that I learned by going over everything. Mainly in general, Black people are more often diagnosed with schizophrenia, less often than the regular mood disorders with the same type of symptoms that a white person may have, but a Black person will end up with a diagnosis of schizophrenia when it could actually be, again, mood disorder. That was something that was alarming to me, of course, when I read it. Not surprising, but alarming. Um, then I also looked and found that when you talk about stigmas and judgments, a lot of that really prevent Black people from seeking out their mental health and trying to make sure that they are getting some services in place. Research also indicated that Black people believe that mild depression and anxiety would be considered crazy in their social circle, and that it would not be appropriate to have those type of conversations with their family and with their friends. So that is something that goes along with the Black culture. Also, Black men and illness is often underdiagnosed, or it is criminalized. So if a Black man is walking around outside talking to himself and doing some bizarre things outside, someone might want to diagnose that, but then someone else is going to look at it. I would say the average person will walk up and say, oh, he need to be in jail somewhere. So it can be criminalized, so all that is interesting, but I wanted to share that information and kind of get it out there. Oh, and it's the last one I wanted to share is that 74% of Black men are exposed to traumatic events and may have unmet mental health needs overall. So, Tremaine, what do you think about those statistics?
I mean, all of that sounds true. And I mean, speaking as a man, yeah, it all sounds exactly what we're taught to be
Mm-hmm.
by, I mean, it's reinforced by our families, by other men in general,
Mm-hmm.
and
Society,
the
socially, of
society at
course.
large, of course.
Yeah. Again, in this one we'll talk more about, because one of the first things we talked about in the women's part is that it is what the cultural it is what the cultural when the Europeans brought slaves over to the US, that was one of the things that was brought with some of these different ways that you're supposed to look at like what a Black man's supposed to be or what a Black woman is supposed to be. So yeah.
I mean, what people are supposed to be and what we are two different things, and
Mhm.
we need that. We really need to have that dividing line. I mean, we all have that dividing line of what we give out to the world and what we bring home to everyone else.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
think there needs to be a balance of. I mean, because part of it is parts of you do agree with certain aspects of being a man or of being a woman, but there are things that, on the other side you may not want to agree with or be a part of. And that's where, that's where we do get the, people having expression in who they are.
Got you. You're
And we
right.
don't, and sometimes our communities don't allow us to have expression
Hmm.
in our gender and what we can be, versus, just having the same, like, you can have two guys, but but we want those two guys to be the very same guy,
Right.
even though
Exactly.
those two guys are different. One's taller, one's shorter. One has, certain different things about him, and there's certain different things about me. It doesn't equate, but it's the thing that we necessarily always try to put on for black men in general, that, oh, well, he needs to be this for me, or he needs to be that for me.
Hmm.
And I
Understand.
think, I mean, in the real world, I don't think anybody has to be one thing for that idea of oneness, that we have to be this one thing.
Right.
um, Definitely pushes us back in a certain type of way, where we can't be ourselves, because we have to be something that we're living up to, more than likely,
You're right. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
and living up to, in a certain age.
Yeah. Traditional, when I did some research on the traditional black men, a lot of times the traditional idea of masculinity involves being stoic, being strong, and being self-reliant for black men. You know, value is able to be placed on the performance of the physical labor for a black man. Having emotional restraint is something that they're supposed to definitely be able to do, and then they're not supposed to be mentally or emotionally intelligent. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but I mean, those play into the stereotypes that we have for black men too.
Hmm.
Play into the idea of a deadbeat dad, the emotionally unavailable, like,
Hmm.
the idea of being emotionally unavailable. I'm like, and that's where those stereotypes become what we are. We become that self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's what people expect of us.
Hmm.
They don't expect us to, hey, no, you go back, you be nurturing to your family, or you you do right by your children,
Hmm.
because that's not expected of us, to do right by our kids, and be a good try to be a good influence on people in general. We're not
Exactly.
allowed to be that.
Exactly.
That's what our black women are supposed to be. They're
Mhm.
like, it's kind of shown as a mirror, like, oh, you have to be this because the man can't be that.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
I like, the man can't be the one that's emotionally understanding of his children.
Yeah, and I always say that when we're talking about males, a lot of time, dad might not be sitting there kissing, her boo boo, or making sure that his first breakup was this way and that way. That's what moms do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, that's not that shouldn't be how we
right.
necessarily have it be. We should
Exactly.
have it be that a man can be emotionally intelligent enough to know, hey, you might not feel like being strong in the moment, but you don't have to always toughen it up. You can talk to me about how you're feeling.
Yes, and I won't judge you or say anything. I can be understanding to all of that.
I can be understanding too. You can come to me in those moments of, I'm not sure,
Right.
and you
Exactly.
need that reassurance.
Yeah. Well, another thing I found too, traditionally with a lot of black men and a lot of black people in general, it is deeply rooted and ingrained in the mindset that we don't seek out services like that. We don't seek out mental health services, and we can, for men, they can be very emotionally unavailable.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that being is because we're so afraid to drop the mask and for
Mm-hmm.
people to see who we really are,
Mm-hmm.
because some people are not ready to see their fathers, their brothers show that vulnerability to them. And like, the first thing people are gonna do is point and call them, well, that's not a man. That's not what, they're a
Maybe.
sissy. They're a punk.
Yeah. I get
They're
you. I got you.
all these derogatory things,
Yeah, very derogatory. Yes, absolutely.
and we're not willing to be like, no, it's okay. You can be that way. You're a human being. Those are things that are inherent. You're not always going to have the armor on,
Yeah,
not always going to be able to keep it all in, keep it all
yeah,
together.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I definitely look at it and I'm like, yeah, because when you think about, I went through when I was doing this research and looked through the black men's don'ts. Black men don't need help. Black men don't share their deepest and darkest secrets. Black men don't do therapy. Um, Black men definitely do not air out the dirty laundry. They don't show feelings. They don't cry. They suck it up. Move on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that we don't need that from time to time, but we need to know a time and place where, like I said about, the women, it's like, where do we go to let that all out? We let that go on our significant others, the
Yeah.
women in our lives,
Hmm.
and that's detrimental to our relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. So I definitely see where it also says seeking assistance is a sign of weakness versus courage and strength. But I can hear what you're saying that no, go ahead and push that weakness out of there and you know
even even though we should allow ourselves to be weak,
exactly vulnerable.
but
Yeah, that's vulnerability.
but we are very afraid of what people around us will say about us once the mask drops.
Well, yeah, and let's look at black men for instance. When we're talking about black men, a lot of time black men tend to harbor feelings of mistrust towards the medical and the health mental health system, and they do because of past abuse of black patients, in historical events.
Mhm,
Like the syphilis study at Tuskegee, that was something that was a public health issue.
mhm,
That's something that really is, yeah. And then the fear of speaking about mental health due to the misinformation and stigmas that do come along with it, just deters people from wanting to seek help. And then we also talk about the disproportionate diagnosing, underdiagnosing, and then also, again, I mentioned earlier that the diagnosis, it might not even be a diagnosis, it might be criminalized. You know what I mean? Yeah.
mhm.
If a individual shows, if they're showing that they are like when it comes to black people, a lot of what their actions and their response, like anger, aggression, and any type of dangerous situation or whatever that may start to go on between a black person, a lot of time that person could be mischaracterized, and then like I said, that could be mischaracterized and be looked at as criminal activity versus that person got a mental health problem. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot, and being misdiagnosed, the misdiagnosis, when it says that it carries a heavy stigma, it does. Because if someone diagnosed you with schizophrenia, that's a heavy, that's a heavy diagnosis. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't think people, no one wants to have to run, the gamut of being diagnosed with schizophrenia. A lot of times people with schizophrenia are not even the violent individuals. They're the ones who's being attacked by someone being violent towards them. So if a black person was, showing some violent behaviors, that doesn't mean schizophrenia. So again, the misdiagnosing and then the underdiagnosing or the overdiagnosing and then criminalizing it. It's a lot, you know what I'm saying, to kind of think about.
Yeah, it's been done time and time again,
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of our society.
Yeah.
Some people getting lighter sentences than others, but doing the exact same thing. You don't
Exactly.
you
Showing the
don't you
exact
don't
same symptoms, getting a lighter diagnosis too. Yeah.
mhm. And those are things that we have to deal with on the basic.
Yeah. The
And
negative. I'm
a
sorry, go
lot
ahead.
of a lot of it is to be silent and to
Hmm.
not necessarily think light of things when things change.
Yeah. Yeah. Suffering in silence is a big thing for black men. And definitely the negative stereotypes and the rejection. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
a lot.
I
So
mean,
mhm.
oh,
Go ahead. I was gonna say I get it, but go ahead.
oh yeah, I understand it too. We might need to go ahead and go to a commercial break now that I think about it, because
Yes. Well,
for a while.
let's do that. Let's go ahead and go to a commercial back break and we'll be back after these messages. Dr. Latasha McElwain's professional consulting services. Dr. Latasha McElwain has become an elite and esteemed professional in her field of counseling psychology. She provides consultation in counseling and business practices, as well as providing supervision, consultation to professionals in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Please reach out to drlatashamcElwain.com 704-492-1105. And put some of them out there. Some of them is about Black men in general, and some of them are about Black people in general. So basically, a lot of Black people live below the poverty line, and that makes it more than twice as likely for them to report, serious psychological distress in the U.S. That's one of the and they may also have financial issues. That's one of the statistics we got from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Office of Minority Health. And then talking about depressive symptoms among Black folks, pretty much they're more disabling, persistent, and treatment resistant than white people. Then we look at the fact that Black men do not receive the help that is needed for many of their daily struggles. So a lot of men, again, focus, they seem to suffer in that silence. And then when we look at Black men are also dealing with a lot of structural racism. And Black men have unique histories with this country, of course. And we're talking about, coming over as slaves. So that is a unique history with this country that makes Black men more, leery about, a lot of things with healthcare. And I would say this, when you think about it, at one point in time, healthcare was only, offered to certain people, and, Black people weren't allowed to get healthcare. So, we have to look at those things and be, understanding to the fact that there's a lot of mistrust, and I'll just, jump on that. But again, Tremaine, what are your thoughts in that area?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of mistrust from back then that, all of it comes down eventually to all of us, our
Present living,
grandparents
right?
and then their parents and then
Yeah.
on to us. It's
Yeah, all of
it's
us.
a cycle. I mean, Black men and Black women, they both have, it's all stigmatization going back from us and coming into our present.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then we have to look at the history again, slavery. We have to look at the arrest rate of Black men. Black men are more likely to be arrested in jail. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
they're more likely to be arrested in jail, but I don't think we're supposedly. I think it's been lowering, like as in like in terms of us going to jail, it's been lowering. I think
okay.
I've heard. I've heard.
Okay. All right. So
I'm
yeah,
sorry, I don't have as many statistics,
that's
but
okay.
it has been lowering.
Well, I mean, I would assume so. It's more focus on it right now. There's a lot
Yeah,
more focus on it. That's why
yeah.
it has been lowered.
I think as some of it is somewhat, I think, over generalized in our society to say it tries to reaffirm the idea that Black men are trouble, and
Right.
they're the type that are going to go to jail,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
more likely to go to jail. I mean, it's not true of all of us, of course.
Correct.
It's not true of in general of us, that we go to jail, because after a while, I'm like, most of us get the picture. We
Right.
know we know what the devil, to do and not to do at this point. That a
Mhm.
lot of us, a lot of us ain't going to jail.
Correct.
Trying
Correct.
real hard not to go to jail.
Yeah. And then a lot of times we have to look at some more societal issues. We got to look at the fact that there's, poverty and homelessness, incarceration. We mentioned that. And then substance use, alcohol use, and abuse, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, a lot of it comes from the factor that we come from poverty. A lot of those things can get into the community a lot more because of because we don't have different outlets in our neighborhoods to give us different things to do.
Yeah, the resources. And then I'm also say this, and I tell people all the time, well, this structure has been set up by, I hate to say it, people say the man, but it's been set up by, European Americans, Europeans when they came over here, and, the British and all that good stuff. But, like I said, when they came over here, this is what they set up as the structure of the United States of America. So, I tell people it's a lot, and we still dealing with systemic racism. So that's another one when we talk about the risk factors, systemic racism. I mean, it's there. Not that it's not going nowhere. We are trying to definitely get to a point of overcoming it. And it's,
I mean,
it was definitely something to see a lot of individuals really say, yeah, that racism was there, but that's not, white
I
Americans
mean,
that came to the forefront and said, that's not me. You know what I'm saying? That
I
might be
mean,
my ancestors, but that ain't me. You know what I mean? And the same thing,
yeah.
black folks coming to the front saying, yeah, our ancestors sat down and bowed down and took all that stuff from y'all. We're not. I got an education and I got this and I got that. And I'm a person, I'm a human being foremost before anything. So no, I'm not gonna bow down to you when you tell me, to kneel. No, why would I kneel to you? So I'm just putting that out there like that. You know what I'm saying? The systemic racism.
I mean, yeah, I mean, systemic racism is everywhere, even to this very day. It's the foundations and stuff are already, baked into the country. It's not like we had a time where it hasn't existed,
Right. Yeah. Oppression is
and
always
or it went away from any amount of time.
exactly, exactly. Traumatic experiences is something definitely that Black men have dealt with and have experienced. Having a trauma response, they're in survival mode. And again, that's generational. We spoke about that for women also.
Yeah, and like you said, with the women's one, some of us have to learn to cope with our different issues.
Exactly, exactly.
Like a lot of us haven't been taught to cope with things. We've
Mhm.
been told to put it all behind us, or like just
Yeah.
not
Suffer
say
in
anything
silence.
about it.
Suffer in silence is what I like to say.
Yep. I mean, it's the same pattern from black men and black women,
Yeah.
that you do suffer in silence.
Yeah. And then the
But
barriers. You don't have this, like you said, you don't have the resources in your community. You can't get, you have a lack of health insurance. You know what I mean?
mhm,
You're unable to get the services. You know what I'm saying? You don't have reliable transportation to get the services. You don't have a culturally responsive clinician or mental health service that's going to be able to deal with some of your lived experiences. You know?
mhm,
Yeah, a lot of that happening. The historical dehumanization, oppression, and violence against Black people. That, yeah, like I said, it still evolves to this present day, and the structure, the institutions, all of that. So
yeah,
you have to be considerate of all that.
mhm.
Despite progress, racism is still a major factor when it comes down to mental health and Black people in general.
Oh yeah, it's a constant push and pull.
Exactly. So, with that, Jermaine, we're going to go ahead and go to commercial break, and we'll be back after these messages. And hello, this is Dr. Latasha McElwain with the Green McElwain Foundation. I have teamed up with osjourneys.com for a wonderful health and wellness retreat in Belize. Our dates for the retreat will be May 21st through May 27th of 2024. There's going to be luxury accommodations. There's going to be a whole lot of time to be able to reflect on things and finding your inner self. The health and wellness retreat will focus on just breathing, just being able to breathe. That is the mantra or the outcome of many individuals nowadays looking for a mind, body, and soul rejuvenation, restoration, and retreat. Come join us. You can get more information at osjourneys.com for travel and for the retreat in Belize. Come join us. And we're back with We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. And again, we're talking today about Black men and mental health, the state of mental health with Black men. That's what we are focused on. And In this last part here, we just want to talk about why is it important for Black men to really want to focus on their mental health. A lot of times, and Tremaine, I'm from my research, living and thriving, being able to avoid, a lot of the survival modes, and having to live in that mindset of every day we trying to make it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Understanding feelings and emotions, developing courage to say, oh no, that bothers me and I want to address it. What are your thoughts, Tremaine?
I mean, we're supposed to well in terms of mental health, yeah, we need to be more forthcoming about anything and everything because we never know. I mean, we want to be there for everything in the future. So, we need to be more forthcoming about what's happening right now versus hearing about it later through some unknown diagnosis or whatever is going on in our lives. We need to be just a bit more forthcoming about our health and everything that's bothering us internally.
Exactly. And I think that totally makes sense for the most part, that we definitely get in there and, make sure that we have a safe place, a safe space. I'm sorry. Um a safe space for, individuals to be able to go ahead and, be able to share, be able to talk about those different things that they have going on.
Uh-huh. We definitely need to, I mean, and it takes, a lot to build that type of community. We need we need more than just, our perspective and our family's perspective. We need to, be able to reach out and get different perspectives on everything.
Yeah, and also I look at also pretty much having access to services, doing supportive groups, men, developing their own supportive group. I've seen a lot of men doing that. Men getting more of their regular medical checkups and really getting good rest, making sure they're taking care of their bodies, making sure they're exercising, eating well, connecting with other folks, and definitely, learning some meditation, physical activities, really taking care of themselves in that way. A lot of that self-care that I talked about in the first video, not video, excuse me, the first I did these on videos, PowerPoints earlier, but when I did my research, but like we talked about in the previous show when I was using the PowerPoint information, it's a lot of the same things that you talked about, Tremaine, and you said it yourself that it's a lot of the same things. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's we're more alike than we know, than we want to admit. We have
exactly.
more in common than we want to let on sometimes. Sometimes we try to believe like it's we're two we're we're two different things just because of our gender. We're very much the same because we're human.
Exactly. So all right, then. So, with that being said, talking about men and having that support, I think, this is a conversation that could go on into other areas and other avenues, Tremaine. But for our show today, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for listening to We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. Again, talking about Black men and mental health, Black women and mental health, really talking about the different things that we can do to help us as a culture be able to move forward and take care of ourselves so that we'll be here living longer and taking care of our families and things of that nature. But we thank you for joining us this week, and we hope that you'll join us next week on Friday at 8:30 a.m. with We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. Have a great one. We Got Options with the Doctor and Son, a family conversation discussing mental health and wellness topics weekly with a variety of special guest appearances. Join us every Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. on www.wdrbmedia.com.